Hello and welcome everybody to this XTB Live News. My name is Walid Koudmani, market analyst for XTB, and in this video we're going to be talking about the main events happening in the markets this morning, what we can expect from the US session, what the major moves have been on the markets on the charts, and some key levels to keep an eye on, and the main events in the economic calendar in this last day of trading of the week. Today, Friday the 19th of March 2021. We've had quite an interesting day yesterday in the markets, closing with the US indices closing lower, with the S&P dropping 1.48%, the Dow Jones 0.46%, while the Nasdaq dropped a whole 3.02%. Similar situation also was so that situation was followed by a similar situation in the Asian markets, with the Nikkei dropping 1.4% and the Kospi dropping 0.9%. Today, the futures of European indices were pointing to a lower open. In fact, most indices today are struggling, along with some other commodities like oil, which we'll go and talk about in a minute. When it comes to the AstraZeneca news that some of you may have heard of regarding the vaccine, so Germany, France, and Italy have returned to using the vaccine after the European Commission said it was safe to use, and Canada said that they were also returned to use it. So that's adding some optimism in the markets, which was taken away at the beginning because this could have been the prospect of slowing down the recovery from the pandemic. Bitcoin continues to trade around $58,000, $59,000, $57,000, $58,000. That is also helping other altcoins and other cryptos. But we are also seeing, for example, the other safe havens sometimes like gold and silver and other precious metals are trading mixed today. When we take a look at today's calendar, there's not actually much in the final day of the week. We had a very busy week with many central banks, including the Bank of England, Bank of Japan, and the US Fed. US Fed, of course, the decision was a few days ago, and they decided to leave interest rates unchanged. So that's all going to be very important to keep an eye on. Today, we had the continuation of the US-China talks, which is the main, let's say, macroeconomic or fundamental event happening at the moment. A lot of tension after what happened between the US and Russia. So now we're seeing some US-China talks continue like they were, if some of you may remember, the phase one trade deal and all of that situation that was going on. Other than that, we had retail sales from Poland, the as I said, the rate decision, Canada, retail sales we'll have, and some one central banker speech from the ECB today. So not much heading into the weekend, but it is mostly fundamental and macroeconomic that we're going to be expecting next week. When it comes to the charts, let's take a look at the charts, starting with the DAX as always. DAX, after the initial, obviously, positive start to the last few days, we saw it consolidate above this level. And you can see that it is now testing or approaching the lower limit of this range around also these two moving averages. So obviously the index, DAX, managing to reach new all-time highs again, 14,804 points, breaking through the 14,800. With no all-time high besides this one, obviously, to act as a resistance. If the move does manage to continue to go upwards, it really does remain to be seen where it can continue to go. Well, if it heads lower, as I said, this area could be a key area. And then we have other consolidation areas in this area as well, around 14,500 or so. When it comes to the UK index, so the FTSE of London, in fact, even worse performance than the DAX. You can see this downward gap with a continuation of the drop. This despite the Bank of England and their decision yesterday. So we saw an adverse effect here as well. When it comes to, in fact, US indices, which we mentioned finished yesterday lower, you can see that session happening. After dropping significantly, we saw it consolidate around 3,915 points. As you can see, this area has acted as a support in the past, also a price reaction area, potential resistance here, potential resistance here. So this is also an area to keep an eye on after US 500 dropped, as I mentioned, over 1.75%. But keep an eye or keep in mind the fact that US 500 actually dropped from its all-time high. So in a way, the performance of the US 500, as I mentioned in other videos, is not the same as the US 100, which we're going to take a look at in a moment. So this is US 100, US Tech Index, also dropped by around 3% yesterday, as I mentioned. But if we go and zoom out, we can see that in fact it is quite far from its all-time high of 13,900. It is over 1,000 points now from that high, but also quite distant, around 700 points from this low reached at the beginning of this month. When it comes to commodities, let's take a look at precious metals. Gold and silver recovering slightly, so trading mix. Gold yesterday finally managed to reach a higher level of 1755. As many of you may know, have been following gold. You can see that obviously it dropped to 1676 fairly recently and has been struggling around the 1700 level. But after breaking through it, and then it pulled back, tested it once more, and then continued the upward move. And you can see this consolidation around this area above the Ichimoku cloud on the H4 time frame. Silver, similar situation, but silver is around 26.27 at the moment, as you can see on the H1, testing the upper limit. Really, it does remain to be seen, but you can see that also we can kind of draw a potential support line on the bottom here. When it comes to, in fact, other commodities like oil is really has had a negative week this week, as you can see. Besides this positive start to last week, it has been consolidating, and then this final drop, in part driven by the demand concerns tied to the pandemic and tied to the opening of markets, in part obviously tied to supply concerns with the return of potentially 2 million barrels per day by Iran and other suppliers from OPEC that are considering an increase in production. But without a rise in demand, the increase in production could lead to some further price pressure on the prices of oil, with Brent really at the lowest level in a while, around 62.66, as you can see, lowest level since the beginning of the month now, almost 3 weeks at this point, breaking below every moving average we have here and the Ichimoku cloud. And really, it remains to be seen how we're going to head into it, because we also saw some reports of the inventories which were above expectations as well. WTI, you can see similar situation actually, but even more crucial, the fact that it broke below the $60 mark, which acted really as an important level in the past. As you can see, if we draw price reaction, you can see here all around price reaction around $60. But now it's not too far down, so in a way it remains to be seen if it will be able to rebound or if it will continue to pull back further. When it comes to, as I mentioned, Bitcoin real quick, 58, almost approaching $59,000. And then when it comes to actual currencies, so fiat currencies, traditional currencies, on the market analysis section here of the website, we can see, or on the platform, we can see no longer the US dollar is in fact trading higher against everybody else. Yes, the last few days we had euro, US dollar, and pound strength. Today, mixed performance from really both of them. Euro a little bit more negative, pound a little bit more negative. In fact, even the franc is a little bit more negative. The CAD, so this Canadian dollar, yen, and New Zealand dollar are some of the best. In fact, even emerging market currencies are doing well. But if we take a look at the pairs, we can see that pound USD, so cable, still trading around 139. After breaking below 140, it really struggled to go back up above. As you can see, several attempts to break through the upper limit here of this short-term trading range, but still remains above also the lower limit, which is marked by this psychological level. When we go and take a look at the Euro-USD pair, which is one of the most popular pairs, you can see as it is overlaid with the USD index, they're quite symmetrical. So in fact, even with this move in particular, you can see that as the USD index rises, we are seeing a pullback in Euro-USD, because Euro is actually quite good performing currency, but it is, when compared to the US dollar, pulling back slightly, but still around 119 key level. And I think that's it for it today. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this video was useful. Good luck with your trading and have a good weekend.